And welcome back to the Survive Scale Soar Podcast. I'm your host, Jeremy. And just a quick reminder, this show comes in two formats. Real talk, it's just me and the mic sharing what's happening in the world and how it might impact your business. And then there's success talks, and that's where I get to interview some of the top people in their respected industry, and they share with you their journey, what's made them successful, maybe even some of the challenges along the way. And today is a success talk. I am so honored to have on the show today Jason Smith of Fairway Mortgage out of Glendale, Arizona. A little bit about Jason. He's always been a guy that served coming right out of high school, becoming a volunteer firefighter, becoming a paramedic, doing over 20,000 911 calls. We'll talk about an incident that took place in his life that set him on a journey that's now impacting millions of people, and then how he got into the mortgage business and why he's one of the most successful in the industry. He's in the top 1%. In only 3 years of business, he's closed over $75 million in loans. Welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you for having me on today, Jeremy.
Jason, this is going to be great. Man, just knowing your story, and there's so much to unpack in it. I don't want to spend a lot of time. I want to jump in and be able to explore some of these things that have happened in your life. What made you're a person of service, it's obvious, and people are going to find out that as they listen to this call today. What made you become a firefighter? What was that step from high school to becoming that volunteer firefighter?
Well, I think, I was a young guy that wanted to do something kind of crazy and serve my community. I come from a very small, tight-knit community, and it's a community that thrives on service and helping your neighbor. And as time goes on, we see that is kind of disbanded amongst a lot of our communities, but that's still a really big thing back in my hometown in Washington. And so when I got out of high school, I was asking myself, what do I want to do? I want to do something that is unique and engaging for me on a day-to-day basis, that's a challenge, but also helps. And so I thought, I'm going to start out, when I was 20 years old, I'm going to start out and be a volunteer firefighter and see where that goes. And after the academy, I got right in there. I was aggressive and got promoted to a resident position where I lived in the fire station every day for about 3.5 years.
Yeah, that's amazing. I think that's missing a lot in our youth today. Having those opportunities to step into and being able to serve the communities in which have served us, and being able to help. And I think if the world would change if we had more of the Jason Smiths in this world that just are out there willing to help, willing to step into the gap for those people that are in need. So you did that for 3 years, and then what made you move from being a firefighter to a paramedic?
Well, those things kind of go hand in hand, really. So if you work on a fire truck, you're either an EMT or a paramedic, because 85% of the calls you run on are actual EMS emergencies. Somebody having, a heart attack, a stroke, a diabetic problem, whatever it may be. And so I got my EMT, was able to do just really basic stuff, but I knew that I wanted to challenge myself and go above and beyond. I didn't want to be the guy just bringing the gurney in, picking people up, doing that. I wanted to be the guy that was down there delivering the babies, giving the IVs, giving the meds, doing the trachs if we have to. I wanted to be that guy because I thrived under pressure, and a lot of these situations are high pressure. And I knew that I could use my ability and my experience to kind of up it to that paramedic level. And so I got my paramedic license, and shortly after that, it was 2009. The economy was terrible. Nobody was hiring. Nobody was going anywhere. I had to move from my small town in Washington because they didn't have a position for me as a paramedic. I had to take a job with Rural Metro Fire Department in Yuma, Arizona, making $10.50 an hour. But I did that because I knew that I wanted to work in the medical field, and I knew I wanted to help people in a different way.
That's amazing. That's a long ways from the Pacific Northwest too. Going from the beautiful forests and mountains to the deserts.
It is, man. It is. I mean, I went from being in my comfort zone with my friends and my family to all of a sudden being in a position where I didn't know anybody. You know, it was just me and my wife, and my grandma was a snowbird at the time, so she'd come back and forth. I get to see my grandma part of the time of the year, but I had to basically start all over. And the biggest challenge is a lot of the folks down there didn't speak English, and so how do you be a new paramedic trying to thrive in that situation and communicate with folks that don't even speak the same dialect as you? It was just challenge after challenge. But I got to say, that was one of the biggest growth periods in my entire life because I learned how to just connect with people. You don't have to be able to just speak the same language. You can be in the presence of someone and have communication and understanding just from letting your wavelengths kind of connect with theirs. You can figure out so much about somebody just being in their presence and giving your attention right to them.
What a beautiful thing. And I believe that's true. Is there's a lot of communication, just nonverbal, right? And just being
Yeah.
in the presence of somebody that you can understand if they're hurting or if they're happy or sad or angry. It's given off in their body language and how they behave. There's something in there that I heard that I want you to expand a little bit on, and that's getting outside your comfort zone. Tell me what that meant for you. Like, how did that feel? And then what actions did that drive you towards?
Well, I mean, basically, I was a fish out of water. I was working primarily in the city of San Luis, which is like 95% Hispanic. So I was the odd man out. You go to the high school and they're teaching the classes in Spanish, not in English. And so I'm literally like a guy walking in a whole nother country trying to serve and help people. And I really had to take that seriously. If I wanted to help, I needed to figure out how to communicate. I had partners that could speak Spanish and translate for me, but I really had to go above and beyond just going into work every day, clocking in and doing my job there. I had to go home and I had to, do Rosetta Stone and other things just so I could learn some basic communication because that was an important part and aspect of the job. But ultimately, the one thing that I realized is, we might have these differences, but we all have similar things in common. And how do we find common ground to build that trust and rapport? Because here I am, basically a foreigner coming into a situation where how do you build that trust and rapport? And I think you have to be able to establish that really quickly. And you do that with your presence. You come in a respectful manner. You come in a manner that you're ready to be open and receive. And then also in those types of situations, you got to be able to take authority because you are the one that they're looking to help save their life or save their family member's life.
Absolutely. And you hit on so many things there. I'm excited. I'm going to shelve them for a minute
Yeah.
because they all apply to business. And
Yeah.
I know I'm going to assume, and we'll talk about it, that's what makes you a successful mortgage broker.
Yeah.
So you did over 20,000 approximately 911 calls. Tell me about the
Mhm.
toll that takes on you. Like, what are some of the challenges you experienced in doing that and being that, involved in the community in which you served?
Well, the real challenge is everybody says, you know what you signed up for. No, you don't. You don't really know what you sign up for because each and every day is different. Every case that you run on is completely different. Every scenario is different. And one of the biggest challenges is how do you walk into somebody's personal emergency and walk away with that not affecting you because you're human, you have a heart, you care, you have compassion. I've been on over probably six, seven, 800 fatalities in my career. And can you imagine how do you just shelve that and bury that and move on? It's super tough. So the big thing is being able to have a support system that loves you and allows you to speak and heal when you need to. That is probably the biggest key for success and longevity in that type of work. But I got to say, when I went to EMT school back in 2005, they told us that at any point of time, when you would run on one of these big incidences, you would have what's called critical incident stress debriefing. Basically, they'd bring everybody in the room that was involved. You could talk about your feelings. How do you feel about it? And then find help and be able to move on. I worked for companies that didn't have that value. And on all those 20,000 911 calls I went to, not one time did we ever have a critical incident stress debriefing. I mean, I've been on, you name it, I've probably been on it more than once. Um, and so that is a big challenge, is moving from the old mentality in that line of work of just bury it and move on because the next thing is coming, to, oh wait, we need to do something about our mental health now, because if you don't, well, here's the result. I've had about 15 coworkers, direct people that I work with, commit suicide because they didn't have the support system that they needed to overcome some of that. You know, when you look at EMS folks, you have some of the highest rates of suicide, divorce, drug addiction. I mean, it's a real problem. And so I'm an advocate now for my, former work life. I'm an advocate now for those folks that work in that line of industry because I understand the damaging effects that can take a toll on who you are mentally, physically, emotionally, financially. You know, my first paramedic job, I was paid $10.50 an hour. How do you support yourself and a family on that? You got to work overtime, and it's built to keep you on the clock and in the ambulance. And that's the tough part. There has to be some sort of change so that folks can come, work, have time to go home and heal. When you're working 24, 36, 48-hour shifts, I mean, that's unbelievable. And with trauma, the biggest key to healing trauma is actually sleep and rest, because the trauma in your brain can never heal if your brain's never shutting off and going through the reset processes. And so I'm an advocate for better pay, better schedules, better work-life balance, and better mental health, for the folks that are still on the front lines doing this stuff.
Yeah, and folks that y'all are listening to this today, if y'all see a paramedic, a police officer, anybody that's in service, take the time to stop and thank them. You're not going to hear this except from people like Jason that have actually been on the ground doing this type of stuff. And I could say that that since this is for small business owners, that you could take that same thing that Jason was going through and apply it to business, in the fact that a lot of people go out there and say, "What? I like being the lone wolf. I can run my own real estate business, or I can run my own mortgage business. I don't need anybody." And that's not the truth. You need that support system, whether it's in business or life. Go find those key people.
Well, every factor in life, Jeremy, has to do with partnerships. Everything. You think about it, the sun comes up in the morning, it shines, and the plants take that in, and then they produce their flowers. The bees come and they pollinate. They move that around to spread life. They go and create honey. We harvest the honey and eat the honey. The Winnie the Pooh harvests the honey and eats the honey. It's all a symbiotic relationship, and the same is true in business. Think about Amazon. Amazon started off just being a book peddler, selling books, used books, new books, whatever. But it took them partnering with various services in order to build. And it's the same. Like with my business, I wouldn't be as successful that I am without having partnerships. And you need that in order to thrive and grow, whether it be a coach or a mentor, whether that be a referral partner or somebody that you can pass off, to the plumber, whatever that is. Partnership is key to all forms of just life in general, but then also in business.
Absolutely. There's so much wisdom in that. I wish we could go a whole hour just on this topic. It would be so good. I'd probably have to have you back on the show. Something happened. Something really tragic happened in your time as a paramedic that really, I think, changed the course of who you are and what you are now. And can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, so throughout my 15-year career, there was multiple incidences where I was sent to the hospital because of whatever. I was fighting a fire and floor collapsed, fell into the basement. I was exposed to chemicals and just all kinds of stuff. But on November 1st, 2015, my partner and I, we were sitting in our ambulance heading back to a call, and a guy that was high on cocaine blew a red light coming towards us in a residential area, going 85 miles an hour. And when he did, he T-boned a car in the intersection, and they came and they hit us so hard that we got moved back 15 feet. He bounced off us and then hit another car that had a mom and 4 children in there. So all of a sudden, you've got me and my partner who are injured, and we have what is called the mass casualty incident. That means that there's too many patients beyond your span of control. Plus, we're hurt, you know. We had the wherewithal to call in for help, but then I got out of the ambulance with a neck injury and a back injury, and I started to render care. And I did what I could. I pulled the man out of the car that had caused that accident. His car was completely crushed, the engine block sitting on the ground, fuel on the ground. I thought the car was going to catch on fire. I pulled him out. He was severely mangled up. The gal that he had T-boned, she was dead. She had to be revived multiple times. And then the family car, they all had to be cut out of the car because the car was crushed so badly. Two of the kids in the back had smashed their heads together in the incident and had skull fractures. Both of them prior to that were on Division I college football scholarships, and that completely ended their football career. So the man that caused this, you know, he was sentenced to prison for 5 years, and it greatly affected many, many people's lives. The lady that was T-boned, I had met her in the courthouse about a year later at his sentencing. She had to learn how to walk again, talk again. It had 24 surgeries already at that point. And on that night, they had to resuscitate her like 3 or 4 times because she kept dying, you know, from the scene to the hospital, then at the hospital again. I mean, I've been on probably well over 1,000 car accidents. Even if I wasn't involved in that one, that would have been top 3 most damage and destruction that I'd ever seen. It was unbelievable, the amount of destruction that was caused just from that one car.
I can't imagine having taken that in. And, you know, I know that the people that are still here today are thankful that you were there and despite injury still rendered aid. It changed you though, and you made a decision to do something. Tell us what happened there and what you pursued.
I mean, at that time in my life, I was at the lowest of my low. I was struggling deeply with PTSD. There were incidences where I wanted to take my own life. I was not happy. I was sad. I was hurting so deeply inside just because of the things that I saw and not having a good work-life balance. So for me, I decided that I wanted to make a change in myself in order to live my best life. And what I did is I got this little settlement check from the accident, and I decided that I was going to buy this crappy old van and turn it into something just to take camping. That was my only goal. I was going to buy a van to go camping where I can get out in nature and just enjoy on the weekends, whatever it may be.
The guy in the van down by the river.
I mean, people say that's a bad thing. No, it's not. It's awesome.
No, it is.
It's awesome.
Keep going, man.
But so I get this van and I start building it up. And as I'm building it up, I think to myself, man, I would love to take this van on a road trip. It's awesome. I would love to see parts of the country. It's a pretty cool thing. And as I began to build it up, kind of a new desire and drive began to fuel me to find something that would bring healing in my life, because for many, many years, I lacked being the recipient of kindness. And so I wanted to experience the world from the perspective of a homeless man that only could survive off of the kindness of others. And so what I had did, I built this van up and I decided I was going to shoot a documentary film. And the film's going to be called Miles of Kindness. And each and every day, I was going to have to panhandle to survive. And I would record all of the experience. And the goal was to see how far I could travel funded only on the kindness of others. How kind are we to one another throughout the country? And then I wanted to be able to highlight issues that were within the homeless community. Because in my job as a paramedic, I work with the homeless community every single day. And I saw their way of life and their stories that nobody would ever know. And pathways to homelessness are great and varied. I mean, there's so many different pathways. So I want to be able to tell that story. So what I did is I had quit my job. And on April 1st, 2018, I left. I went to the side of the freeway, just me, my van, and my cameraman, and I started a panhandle. And within an hour, I got $1, and then I got a $10 bill, and then I began to cry because I realized, oh my gosh, I have enough that I can just eat today. I have what I need just to get through today. And it was such a crazy, humbling experience to be on the side of that road in a position of need. See, this whole entire trip and project, I didn't use any of my money. It was all hidden camera work, relying solely on people truly, genuinely giving because they want to, because they saw somebody in a position of need. My cameraman would be laying in bushes somewhere, filming. Like it was all hidden camera work. And so we would capture the good and the bad. I was assaulted and robbed. I was detained by the police a dozen times. But we started on the side of the freeway here in Phoenix. And in 6 months' time, I was able to travel to 42 states, over 100 major US cities, over 17,500 miles from Phoenix all the way down to Key West, Florida, all the way up the east coast of Bangor, Maine, across the top of the country to Seattle, down to LA and back. And we have samples of people all over the United States giving and taking care of me. They don't know me, but all walks of life took care of me. It wasn't just folks that looked like me, it was everybody. And that was one of the most powerful things that I was able to report. And on top of that, highlighting and sharing and showing other people's stories along the way makes it even more powerful because some of these folks I'm still in contact with today. And some of these folks have overcome poverty and addiction and homelessness and now live in a home. One of the guys I'm working with right now to try and help him buy his first home. I mean, isn't that amazing? You went from chronic homelessness and addiction to now positioning yourself where you can own a home and have really one of the most stable things that you could do for your life. And so after that 6 months time, I had well over 600 hours of footage. I tried to edit it myself, and that is not where my brain works. I just my brain's not there. I can't do it. I tried, but I can't do it. So for a while, the project kind of took a bit of a back burner. We had COVID, took a bit of a back burner, and then it wasn't until the middle part of last year that I was able to make a connection with a good friend of mine that's all he does is editing film. And he took the project on for us and put together really a beautiful piece of an example of just the love that everybody had for me and showed, the day-to-day plight of things that I went through. And I put myself in those shoes. I was eating food out of trash cans and I was going to soup kitchens. I let myself go. I had a big, ball of hair and a big beard and my clothes were worn and tattered. I did my best to immerse myself into that experience. And what I walked away with is probably the most life-changing, valuable thing that I could have ever have done to date. Because there's more coming down the road.
That's awesome. I have a question, and I think I know the answer to this, and I think this question is probably coming from people too that are listening in on this call. Is that in your experience in traveling? I think it was 17,500 miles, is something crazy, 42 states. Mm-hmm. Did you find that there was more kindness given than hatred?
100%. 100%. Yes. Yes. I mean, I was assaulted. I was robbed. There were some negative comments, but everywhere I went, I was taken care of. Everywhere I went, I had a need and I was brought in and loved. People would go out of their way to come back around to give me a couple of dollars or some food or ask me if I needed some help. Kindness prevailed over anything else. And that's the best thing about the story, miles of kindness, because we're highlighting and showing it everywhere throughout the country. It's not just one place, it's everywhere.
Yeah, I think that needs to be heard. I think if you get anything from this podcast today, is that kindness reigns. And the media, if you turn on the news, whether it be the local, the national, doesn't matter what side of the coin, you would think that kindness would not be out there. And to hear that, it's just, to me, it's encouraging. It's hope. It gives hope. And I believe that that's the case as well. And I think we just need to hear that. And I think you you're able to walk in those shoes and actually, despite some of the challenges that might have come along the way, able to come out of it and say, kindness ruled in the entire project.
Absolutely.
You came through Houston, didn't you?
I did. I did come through Houston. Houston is featured in the film a little bit. We talk about, so back during Hurricane Katrina, one of the biggest challenges during that time was people that were in Louisiana. They were displaced, people that lived in New Orleans, and a lot of folks came to Houston. When they come to Houston, there wasn't the housing or the jobs available for folks. So a lot of people ended up on the street. And so that is one area that we did highlight and we talk about. I did panhandle in Houston. I had two funny signs. Like everywhere I would go, I would try different signs. And sometimes it'd be a funny sign. Sometimes it would be, sad or to the point, whatever. But in Houston, I had one that said astronaut test dummy for hire. And then another one was like, Houston, we have a problem. I'm homeless. And so trying to see what people engage with and what people interact with, that was a big part of it too. But I do want to make, like, kind of circle back and touch on one point. It's more than just showing kindness of people. It's also showing the pathways to people's homelessness, to the situation. Because everybody thinks, these are just a bunch of drug addicts. Screw them, write them off. But they're not. They're not. Yes, drug addiction and mental illness are a big part of the homeless population and community. But when you stop and you think about it, when this person was 10 years old and you asked them in school, what do you want to be when you grow up? Nobody ever said, I want to be a homeless drug addict on the street. Something in life happened that was a catalyst. And when I'm interviewing folks, I'm trying to find, what is that catalyst that brought them there? For one girl that was 23 years old, she'd been homeless since she was 10 with her mom. And her mom prostituted her out as a child in order to receive money to buy drugs and then put her on drugs to keep her numb and keep performing for her. Another guy, he was in the military and was sexually assaulted by his commanding officer. And he came back and suffered from mental illness from that and addiction. And when I had met him, he was now living in a home and was able to utilize services from the VA. But that was his pathway to homelessness. And there's ton. So the idea was also to bring the homeless person out as an individual and look at them as an individual, because the life that you have, Jeremy, is different than the life that I have, and is different than the next person's life. But we're all worthy of the right of life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. But something happened that brought them there. So how do we cure it? We find individual solutions for the individual rather than just a big mass band-aid, because band-aids don't work.
Yeah, and that's, you see that come from the government a lot, right? They're like, oh, we got this program and it doesn't necessarily fit the specific needs. I think it was you that shared this the other day and it caught my attention. I think I've heard it before. I might have heard maybe a little bit different number, but there are the percentage of people that are $400 to $500, emergency away from poverty, or not being able to catch up or being behind is quite astounding.
It is. And what that comes down to, I've been reading this book. So every day I try and challenge myself a little bit. I've been reading this book. It's not my book. I'm not trying to sell it. It's called How Money Works. This is like a basic kids level book that most average 20, 30, 40-year-olds don't even understand the concepts. And it talks about how 40% of Americans can't withstand a $400 emergency because they don't know how money works. So financial literacy is a huge part of why folks are not successful. Discipline is another part of it, but only 17 out of the 50 states require there be any type of personal financial class done in high school. So a lot of folks come out of school and they don't know how money works. Money coming in is not the problem. It's not. You go to work, you get a paycheck. Money coming in is not the problem. It's what do you do with that money? Do you park it in a regular savings account? No, you need to find ways to invest it and put it in higher yielding accounts so that you can build and withstand on that compound interest. And so I'm doing just little videos and talking about that so that the average person could maybe say, man, you know what? I need to wake up a little bit and maybe be smarter with my money. Maybe read these little, how-to guides to help bring myself to a better position of finances. Because I got to tell you, the first 20 years of my working life, working on an ambulance and whatnot, I didn't make a whole lot of money, but I didn't have anything to show for it because I didn't understand how money works. And when I got into real estate, got into home lending, that became a new passion of mine, is how can I build something for myself and use that as an example to show others. And so I get to be the expert in how money works, to share that with my community, with my friends, with my family, so that they can better position themselves. And a big, the ultimate goal is stability, and home ownership is a huge part of that. It can curb your possibility to go into homelessness, but it can also give you that compound interest year over year over year to be able to position yourself to have something at the end of the day. Because you know what? Social Security could run out. Or if you do get Social Security at the end of the day, what is that going to cover? It's only such a small thing, and people are living longer. So investing your money wisely, that's what I'm learning about. That's what I'm consuming, and that's what I'm pushing and teaching others at the moment.
Yeah, I think that's awesome. And I know financial is just one component of the people that you came in contact with that were homeless. I know there's many other ways. There's many pathways, like you said. And I think the overall thought with that too is that, we're blessed with what we have, but it may be gone tomorrow. And so, being kind and showing kindness to those that are going through that and helping bring them back. I think that's a pretty powerful message to put out there. So you did this. It actually became a film, and I think even like a red carpeted event, and it was a pretty big deal. And is there any way to watch that? Is it up anywhere? Do you have it anywhere you purchase or?
Yeah, so it's currently not on any streaming platforms. We did our first premieres this last summer, one here in Phoenix, and then we did two showings in Washington State, in my hometown. The idea is to enter it in film festivals. So at that point, maybe there's some reviews or awards that could get behind it, and then at that point, it's easier to take to platforms to shop, to try and get it on like a Netflix or a Prime or a Hulu or something like that. If you don't do that, it's a little bit harder to go shop your product. And so it's always good to have reviews prior to entering that. So right now, it's not currently on any streaming platform. If I were to put it up on YouTube, it would be ineligible for film festivals. It has to have not been released on anything. So that's kind of the focus for the next phase, is getting it out there, and into the festival stream for this next spring and summer. And then from there, shopping it on a platform, hopefully next fall.
That's very awesome. So we'll stay tuned to that, and if we get any updates, I'll make sure to pass it along. So you got through with this project, and you sort of kind of stumbled into the financial side of the real estate business. Tell us about how you got started and joined Fairway Mortgage.
Yeah, I mean, it was the most random thing. I when I came back from doing the film, I hopped back on and worked on another ambulance for a while. I knew that I didn't want to go back to working on an ambulance, but that was kind of my option, or at least what I thought. At least what I thought. I didn't bet on myself. I didn't believe on myself. I didn't think I could do anything else. Well, in like January of 2020, I get this piece of mail, and it says, "Hey, refinance your house." And it said Fairway Mortgage on it, but it looked kind of odd. I call my buddy, and he said, "Hey, this is a scam piece of mail," because my buddy works at Fairway as well. He said, "That's a scam piece of mail, but let's take a look and see, is there any way that if you refinance your house, could you save?" And sure enough, I could save some money. So we did a refi on the house. And then they invited me to a client appreciation event. And while I was there, my buddy said, "Jason, why in the hell are you still working as a paramedic, man? You're making garbage wage. You're exposed to all these terrible things." He goes, "You know how to talk to people. You know how to connect with people. You're lovable. You're likable. You know how to bring people together and serve. Why don't you consider becoming a loan officer?" And I had no idea what that entailed. I said, "Well, I don't have a bachelor's degree or a master's degree in finance." He goes, "You don't need that. You just got to go take the course." So I signed up for a course. And then right about that time, COVID hit. and everything was canceled. We all remember the world was on lockdown like that, you know? So I had to wait for some additional online content to come out, which took a couple of months. People had to get their accreditations and whatnot. And so once that content was out, I was able to sign up and take the actual course. And then in August of 2020, I told my EMS employer, peace out, no more abuse, no more of this crazy stuff. I'm gonna go try something new. I'm gonna bet on myself. I walked in the doors that first day. I didn't know what the hell I was doing. I just knew about RESPA, TILA, like basic law, because that's all they teach you. They don't
Sometimes the
teach you.
best is just that ignorant bliss. You walk in, you have no idea,
Yeah,
you're ready to
yeah.
go.
Yeah, they don't teach you how to structure a loan. They don't teach you how to talk to people about loan products. You get just a basic generic overview, which by the way, what they teach you is not even close, to what desktop underwriter will actually accept or loan processor will actually accept in the guidelines. Like the guidelines they teach you are not even right. Because every company is a little different. And then, so basically, you walk in there and you think you're cool because you can say a couple terms about the law, but you really walk in and you don't know jack shit, you know?
Yeah. Happens in real estate too. You get your real estate license and somebody comes in, they're like, yeah, I know everything. I don't need a coach. I'm like, all right, good
Yeah.
luck.
So I knew when I walked in the door my first day, I knew my role was going to be loan officer assistant. I didn't know what exactly that entailed, but I was willing to try something new. And when I got in there, I said to myself, man, do I want to be an assistant and I could potentially make this, or could I actually apply myself and try and move more towards the sales side of things? I want to move towards sales. Well, how do I do that? I need to create and build an audience. And then I asked myself, well, what do I have from my prior career that could transfer over? Like, what is transferable? You're not starting IVs on people or giving them drugs. No, the only thing that was transferable, and this has been the key for me, is the ability to walk into a situation and establish rapport within 30 seconds and build trust and let them know that you're the man for the job. That's the only thing that transferred over. Because each and every 911 call that you would run on, you've got 30 seconds to look at the scene, to establish rapport, and to get moving. And it's the same thing when you're talking with people. Your first impression makes a huge difference. If you're cold calling and you sound like an idiot or an asshole on the other end of the phone, they're not going to talk to you. They're not going to listen. But if you find a way to be personable, if you find a way to get somebody to engage with you, you're going to open up opportunities. So I realized I've only got 30 seconds. That's all I have. And I can win in 30 seconds or I can lose. I'm going to go out there. I'm going to give my all for that 30 seconds. And we're going to do what we can to try and build that trust and rapport so we can move it to the next level. And so I started to do that. And I started to take applications right away. And my first month closing loans, I closed 12 deals for about $2.5 million. And at that point, my boss came back to me and they said, okay, we're not going to have you just be an assistant collecting docs, setting up stuff. You clearly have a desire and a passion and an ability to connect with people. How can we support you? And that's when I just took off running and I thrived. Even though we were in a bit of a refinance boom, that didn't matter. I was new. I didn't know shit. I was brand new. I still had to go out there and get business. And I did. My first year closing loans, I closed over 25 million in my first year and made top 1%. And it's only continued to grow from there. And it all comes back to that ability to connect, ability to build relationships and partnerships. Because if you don't have that personality in any type of business, you're never going to grow.
Yeah. I think that, and, I think the reciprocating of kindness, right?
Yeah.
And so being able to establish rapport, build that trust and show kindness and truly help people get what they want. I think that's the lost art. I think our world has become so transactional. That's
Yeah.
not what I coach to. I coach to relationship building and it's got to go beyond the transaction. It's establishing that rapport, for repeat business and referral.
Yeah.
It's a long game, and there's so many people that are playing the short game, especially coming out of the last few years where it was easy to do a real estate transaction. They were just falling into your lap. It might have been hard to find the home, inventory was short. But there's a lot of people out there, and now the market's shifting a little bit. It's getting a little funky in different areas. And it's really going to separate those people that are able to build the rapport and the trust and be able to show kindness and competence of what they do and deliver. So, I think that's amazing how you were able to bridge the gap between the two. It doesn't have to be everything from your past experiences. It could just be a couple things.
Yeah, exactly. And the big thing is when you're building a relationship, you're wanting to build loyalty in a client for the next 20, 25 years because they're not going to live in that house forever. They're going to refi every couple of years. They may sell and go buy a new home, but you have to be able to be true and genuine in your interactions and your follow-up. Even though I've been in the industry for 3 years, I have many people that are repeat customers. They bought their first home with me, they refied with me, and then, their life situation changed. They sold, they went and bought another house. So building that rapport, being kind, finding ways to follow up and keep people engaged, that's huge. Because if you don't, you're just a transactional person. I would rather build a relationship-based business and know that I'm going to work hard right now. We're going to establish things based on integrity, based on just always trying to do the right thing. And down the road, you're going to come back to me and you're going to send your friend to me and your family to me. Because for me, I don't care what the loan amount is. I've had people come and say, "Oh, my loan amount's only for, 100 grand. You're probably not going to want this one." I don't care. I'm going to do a great job for you because what did I do? I just tapped into your entire circle of people, and I'm not going to judge you for whatever your home is. That's not a problem. I want you to have a safe, clean living situation that supports you and keeps you from the street, keeps you from poverty, helps you build synergy in your life. That's a huge deal. That may be a huge deal for somebody to go buy their first home. Maybe it's $150,000. That's great. I want to be your biggest cheerleader in that moment. And if I do a good job, I just tapped into your entire referral base. Every time you have a conversation with a friend and they say, "I'm thinking about buying a home," they're going to say, "Hey, man, let me hook you up with Jason." And
Yeah,
then
absolutely.
now I don't even really have to do the cold calls anymore. Now people are calling me because I've already done the background and the work. Do I still cold call? Yeah, I still cold call because I want to continue to build and grow. But it just starts to naturally come in. And I can't imagine where my business is going to be at year 5, at year 10, year 15, 20, if it is already where it's at right now. So just keeping the diligency, keeping the kindness, being authentic on and off camera. That's the biggest thing. One of my biggest heroes is Mr. Rogers. Are you familiar?
Mm-hmm.
Are you
Yeah, Mr.
familiar?
Rogers' Neighborhood. Yeah.
Mr. Rogers was the same guy off camera as he was off. I want to tell you just a quick kind of cool story about him. So it was a really cold day. They were up in Canada, and he had a meeting at this restaurant. And his driver came to pick him up to take him to the lunch meeting. And when they got to the lunch meeting, Mr. Rogers said, "Hey, why don't you come in and have lunch with us? It's cold." And the driver said, "No, I'll just wait in the car." Mr. Rogers, "Nope, come in and be a part of our lunch meeting and have lunch with us." Brings the driver in, doesn't even know the guy, brings him inside. The guy sits down. He's a part of the lunch meeting and he's getting to interact with everybody. Well, afterwards is where the story becomes kind of crazy. And this is a true story. He's driving Mr. Rogers back to his hotel. And Mr. Rogers says, "Well, do you live nearby?" And the guy said, "Well, yeah, I just live a mile up the road." He goes, "I'd like to meet your family." And so the guy's like, "Really? Yeah, take me to meet your family." So Mr. Rogers drives him, or the guy drives Mr. Rogers to his house. They come to the front door. The wife opens the door and sees her husband there with Mr. Rogers, and she's blown away. And he said, "I want you to come in for dinner." And the wife says, "Well, I don't have enough supper for everyone." Mr. Rogers says, "I don't care. That's fine. I just want to come and visit you and give to your family." And when he walked in, he saw there was a piano. The family sat down to eat, and Mr. Rogers sat there at the piano and played the piano for them and sang songs. And then after dinner, the whole family joined him, and he played the piano and they sang songs all evening. And then once it got late, the driver took Mr. Rogers back to his hotel. That's the kind of person I want to be. I want to be authentic on and off the camera, just like Mr. Rogers was. That's my personal hero. And if you can't, if you're turning it on when the camera's on, you're an asshole.
Exactly.
So for me, my goal in my life is to try and be the best version of myself so that I'm the same and I'm authentic when the camera's rolling and when the camera's not. The Jason that you're going to get when we shut this video off is the same Jason you're getting right now. Positivity, love, energy, kindness, all of that I want to continue to bring and shine forth through my day and through my life.
Well, Jason, thank you for being on the show today. There's just so much. We could spend another 5, 10, 15 minutes just unpacking the nuggets. If you're listening to this, I encourage you to listen to it again. Share it with a friend or a colleague that may need to hear this today. There's just so much in there, and I appreciate you sharing that. So you're with Fairway Mortgage out of Glendale, Arizona. How do people connect with you?
I mean, well, there's a couple ways. You can go to Facebook and type in Jason Smith Fairway Mortgage, I'll pop up, or you can Google search Jason Smith Fairway Mortgage, all my info pops up. So that's probably the easiest way. I also have my own, stuff on Fairway's site. If you type in Jason Smith Fairway Mortgage, all my stuff will come up there to contact me, whether it be a phone call or an email. Google's pretty powerful. You can even search Jason's Most Excellent Van Adventures on Facebook, and my van page will pop up, and you can go back in time and watch me as I post and stream things from the entire project, from building the van to the day one of homelessness to 6 months later, and then everything that has happened since then. So pretty easy to find. I know there's a lot of Jason Smiths, but I think those are the keywords right there to search.
Yeah, it's kind of like Jeremy Williams. There's a bunch of us out there
Yeah.
too, so
Yep.
we're blessed with the common name. What states do you write in?
So I'm personally licensed in Texas, Arizona, California, Colorado, and Washington. My team is also licensed in about a dozen other states. So really, it doesn't matter what state somebody's looking to buy in. Either myself or my team has the ability to write there. If not, somebody in my branch does. So typically, what happens if I've got somebody that wants to buy in Florida, I'm not licensed there, but my partner is. Well, what I do is I still work the loan for you. I still take care of that and I handle that. I just put the loan in my partner's name, and then I see you all the way to the finish line. So pretty much any state that somebody wants to buy in, I can either handle it or get it directly with one of my in-house team members.
That's great. So guys, support Jason. He's doing an amazing job out there. I know he's going to take care of, for my realtors, they're going to take care of your clients. For those that are out there, they're just looking for somebody to finance or connect with Jason. He's going to take great care of you. I want to do this. I haven't done this before on the show, but I want to just turn the mic over to you for 30 seconds to a minute. And I want you to share, think about the audience today, small business owners, 80% of them real estate agents, a lot of small business owners outside of that, all different various industries. Share with them in 30 seconds to a minute one piece of advice that they could take and maybe implement today in their lives.
All right, here's the real quick one. So I watched a documentary on Kanye West called Genius. And in this documentary, he was a young guy. He was just a producer, not really a rapper. And he was walking through the studio one day and he knew that Jay-Z was in one of the booths recording. He walks in there and Jay-Z's in there and he says, "Hey, put me in on the next song." And Jay-Z was blown away. Put him in on the next song. He went in there, he killed it. As soon as Kanye walked out, he shook his hand. Kanye left the room, and Jay-Z looked around to everybody. He said, "That's how you have to be. A closed mouth doesn't eat." If he didn't walk in here today and say, "This is what I want," he wouldn't be on this track. So I want to encourage people to go out there and speak about what you do. Talk about what you do. Share about what you do. Keep swinging that bat, because if you don't swing that bat, you're never going to hit the ball.
I love that. So that could just be the podcast right there.
Yep.
Jason, thank you for your time today. Jason Smith with Fairway Mortgage out of Glendale, Arizona. Thank you for your time. Thank you for sharing your journey, the challenges that you faced, how you overcame those, and how you're building something that's really successful. I know is going to impact tons and tons of people. Thank you again for being on the show.
Awesome. Thank you very much for having me, Jeremy. I appreciate you. And man, let's keep building great things together, man.
That sounds wonderful. Until next time, onward and upward.
Thank you.
All right, man.